Welcome everybody to this Pillars of Sustainable Education webinar. My name is Kathleen Smith and I am the Vice President of the Living Building Challenge at the International Living Future Institute. And today we are going to be talking about the Pillars of Sustainable Education program, which is supported by the Alcoa Foundation. So after I am done giving the overview, I will hand it over to Alice Truscott, who's the Program Manager at Alcoa Foundation, to tell you about the program. And then we are going to be hearing from three different professors at three different universities describing the projects and programs that they developed with their students. The goals of today are to learn the key steps in developing community-based projects through student engagement and to describe the tools and strategies used to implement student-led projects that have real outcomes and results, and to understand the importance of that community engagement in student-run architecture projects that focus on implementing regenerative design principles. And we'll also talk about utilizing tips to bring similar lessons learned into real-world projects so that you can take and apply in your own situations. So I'm going to hand the ball over to Alice Truscott right now, who's the Program Manager at Alcoa Foundation, and she was the Program Manager for the Pillars of Sustainable Education program, so she'll tell you a bit about that and the projects. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kathleen. I'm so happy to be here to help you guys learn about the Pillars program and the amazing work that our university partners are doing. So just a quick overview about the foundation itself. Alcoa Foundation is one of the largest corporate foundations in the U.S. with assets of approximately $470 million, and we were founded 62 years ago, and since then we've invested more than $590 million. We focus on building innovative partnerships to improve the environment and educate tomorrow's leaders for careers in manufacturing and engineering. And we're also very proud of our employees who are passionate volunteers in their communities as well. And so, as Kathleen mentioned, I oversee our environment portfolio, and our partnerships fall under these four sub-themes. So natural capital, where we partner with leading organizations across the globe to promote biodiversity, conservation, reforestation, and responsible land and water use. Environmental literacy, where we partner with organizations that help educate Alcoa communities, so teachers, students, and employees, on how to become sustainability ambassadors. Standards leadership. As a global corporation, Alcoa really understands how essential it is for multinational companies to measure and report their sustainability practices and accomplishments. And we know that in order to achieve this, there needs to be reliable and agreed upon environmental standards. So this is why Alcoa Foundation works with global nonprofits on developing life cycle assessment measurement tools, water management indices, and other methodologies to analyze environmental footprints in a holistic way. And of course, sustainable design, the sub-theme under which our Pillars program falls under. And we understand that environmental sustainability goes beyond wildlife and conservation and recycling and is closely tied to the products that we use and the places we inhabit. And so through our partners under this sub-theme, we're investing in solutions and systems for cities that maximize the use of resources and reduce waste. So the Pillars of Sustainable Education program, as Kathleen mentioned, is something that we sponsor but is managed by the International Living Future Institute. And the program awards grants to universities to support the realization of community-based projects that explore innovative uses of sustainable materials. And projects range from 1 to 3 years in duration, throughout which the project team provides regular reports and project updates, which they make available online. And research initiatives explore things like sustainable building materials and building systems, and integration of humans and their environment in design approach. So today, as we mentioned, we have some professors all over the world to talk about their exciting projects and give you an update on them. So I just want to highlight the current active projects under the program. They're international in scope, as you can see. So starting clockwise from the top left, Carnegie Mellon is focused on affordable, sustainable renovations for an under-resourced neighborhood in Pittsburgh. You'll hear more from Nina Baird later on this project. At the University of Sao Paulo in Brazil, professors, community leaders, and residents have been working together to address post-flood related issues, designing and building temporary and portable ablution blocks. The bottom right, at Purdue University in Indiana, a team is investigating the impact of innovative facade technologies, lighting and thermal systems, and controls on energy use, and they're examining the relationships between variable indoor environmental conditions, human comfort, and energy performance. At the Georgia Institute of Technology, students and professors are creating actionable solutions for humane, smartly designed, ultra-low energy, and cost-effective urban housing, and you'll hear more from Michael Gamble on this project later too. And last but not least, a joint project led by Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands and Aachen University of Applied Sciences in Germany, and they're facilitating a mobile laboratory that showcases sustainable and integrated solutions for the next generation of building facades. But I won't go into too much detail because our next speakers are Professors Ulrich of TU Delft and Professor Ute of Aachen. So I'll hand it over to you two.
For introducing us, and I'm moving the slide forward, and maybe I also start talking a little bit about the context of the program, and then later on I think Uli will also join in to explain some of the workshops, but I start giving you an overview. So the idea of the EFN Mobile was coming from actually a kind of European network, the European Facade Network, that we already have as a kind of cooperation, informal cooperation between those universities in Europe that have a facade, a specific facade master program. And what we were looking at is that we see that the facade, the building envelope, is one of the very crucial elements if we want to move forward with sustainability, energy efficiency, and also in terms of life cycle assessment, the durability of the built environment in general. So by, for example, improving the facades in terms of technologies, material use itself, but also in a way of how can we make the facades more user-centered in terms of that they adapt to the human comfort inside, but also have an influence on, for example, the conditions in the city. Yes? Facades are reflecting surfaces. So there are many aspects that we are investigating with these programs that we call emerging envelopes as and the most important was to involve the students from different universities and from different nations as well. So what you can see on the right-hand side is all this number of cities and workshops where the EFN, where the program and the workshop was going, starting in 2013 in Detmold and actually finishing just last November 2015 in Detmold as well. And in between you can see that we had a lot of events and workshop, hands-on workshop in the Netherlands, in Aachen, in Delft, in Bath, in San Sebastian, and we're also presenting. And just the next slide, you can see the starting partners of the European Facade Network, the red ones that are marked in the map. And so the last 2 years, also with the help of the EFN Mobile program, we had also requests from Politecnico Milano and from Istanbul University who also want to join this network and who were present at our workshops and saw the results. And actually, they also want to participate, and hopefully we extend this activity to Istanbul next year. And yes, I maybe start just to show the results. That was the photo on the first slide, where we had the first workshop with these huge mock-ups that were 1 by 2 meters size, where we dealt with performance, like how can we improve daylight conditions in the building. And as you can see, it's really a design approach that we try to teach the students, but at the same time to also understand the making, so the production process, and that is very different in different countries. Here you can see how we expose these first 2 mock-ups. The one you see here at the at an exhibition in the Netherlands. And maybe I hand over to Uli to explain the next workshops. So this was in Bath 2014, where we changed the topic, and it started to deal with embodied energy. So to use sustainable materials and to also produce facades. Uli, do you want to continue?
Embodied energy is a clear point. When we produce facades and we make them more effective, the question is how much energy do we invest to get this better? And this workshop was focusing on trying to identify materials which are easier and simpler to be used and maybe even recycled. Next slide. As we do these workshops, the results have to be exhibited. So this is an GlassTech event 2014. GlassTech is the leading conference on glass technologies, and obviously facades, especially aluminum facades, are linked to glass. So we had this quite large stand at the GlassTech, very successful. Lots of students coming there to see what we did and developed, and we also had some workshops and some very nice lectures by colleagues also from Alcoa participating in this one. Next slide. Then another series of workshops happened. This one is Lucerne. This one was a bit more interactive, as you can see on the right side. More machines being involved, trying to make the facades more interaction design, more adaptive for the user, reacting on human behaviors as an aspect of interaction facade people. Next slide, please. And that was an intensive one, far away, quite off of our standard routes, San Sebastian. But as you can see, the tent traveled there, the whole truck traveled there, and again we had lots of students, quite broad range of background, engineers, architects, which again were involved in an embodied energy approach. In this situation was more about local materials, as you can see in some of these mock-ups as well. Nice conference where this was exhibited as well. Next slide. And then we have a series of thinking skins. Thinking skin means that the facade itself has to be adaptive to the user, but also to the interaction between inside and outside, to react to a climate situation inside and outside, and maybe even be able to deal with the energy, collecting energy, storing energy, and delivering it to the inside. This one was the first one done in Delft, and the next slide, this was Next slide was the second one, which was done in Aachen. In Aachen, we have friends which are pretty much into the computational part, and we linked this to a computational program at Facadetronics, which gave us the opportunity to get really this thinking skin aspect into the construction. So really getting the normally less active facade components really interactive. That was really smart to see. I'll say the students develop their own programming with this tools. Next slide. And then we had another one in Detmold, Facadetronics, which was trying to use the already made experience. And as you can see on the left side, this really became some Lego-like facade system where we had different types of functions being assembled according to the question of the function, but also the question of the climate. And as you see, the program of this workshop was very organized and was embedded in a conference surrounding where all the participants of the conference in the end had the chance to check out what we did with the students. Next slide. The nice thing with this EFN mobile and the EFN network was that at a certain point it became bigger and bigger, and we had the interests of colleagues of other universities, so not only the 5 which were participating in the beginning and the 2 which started to raise their hands to join, but a lot others. And at a certain point, one of our colleagues, Andreas Levy, started a Cost Action. Cost is a European agency which pays researchers and teachers to meet on a regular basis. So as a result of this European Facade Network Mobile, this grant was given, and we are now running a national or more international European-wide program with, I think it's about 60, 80 participants, which really gives quite broader scope. And they're all, of course, investigating what we do with these student workshops. So hopefully the program can be continued on this kind of route. Next slide. Yeah. And then we promised that we have to make this accessible to outside as well. And the instrument which we normally use is this Imagine series. It's published by a very prominent Dutch publisher, and it distributes, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 copies worldwide. And I see them in Korea and in the architect's office being used. So we are proud that we are able to get this European Facade Network mobile now, being the Imagine number 9. And being key in developing it, I have to announce that I just an hour ago saw the last PDF, so it's going to be on print, and I assume it's going to be in the stocks in, let's say, 2-3 weeks. And that's quite promising to see this as a result. The core concept of this European Facade Network mobile is to design, to develop, to make, and also to fail, and that's something which is interesting for the students as well. So they do the design, they develop it, they have to make it, and this making process, that's a very intensive experience, which we really approached in this program, and then they fail. So things don't work, things break, and they may look ugly as well. And that's part of the educational aspect to get it to something which is really an integrated and sustainable result. We had about 15 or let's say 13 events, and there are 2 more to come, including this publication of the book, which really ended up in lots of very interesting results. Developing emerging envelopes. This is the story of the EFN Mobile. And now I have to hand over to Michael.
All right. To give you a little bit of an overview, and I'm considering this an update, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but at Georgia Tech, I'm a component of the High Performance Building Laboratory in the School of Architecture, and our specific topic related to the ALCOA Pillars of Sustainable Communities is housing and energy research. And our group seeks to expand 21st century housing options to meet the needs of an area that we're all interested in, changing urban demographics, sustainability targets, and alternative energy requirements, of course. And we're putting design at the sort of head of the table here. So we say that all of this happens through smartly researched and elegantly designed housing and public space solutions. Long term, our multivalent focus is on what constitutes a viable public and affordable private realm. And our faculty and students are diverse. It's quite a diverse cohort, from architecture, building construction, School of Business, high performance building and engineering. And so we've got design and science pretty well represented here. The emphasis in this particular area is placed on the analysis of the energy performance and environmental impacts of urban housing, as well as on the integration of these metrics in the development of innovative and what we like to think is socially conscious architecture. With our students at Georgia Tech, the key metric for our design-driven research is to, quote, prove it. They have to prove their design decisions. So decisions in building system selections are justified through analysis, simulation, and calculations, and they cover a variety of research topics, including site choice, building ecology, demographic influence, changing household structure, as I mentioned, the private and public realm design, energy demand, building operational strategies, building simulation, and so on. And we're engaged right now in a number of campus, city, and regional initiatives. So I'll jump over to this first slide, which has been the biggest news we've had at Georgia Tech in some time, and this is due, in fact, to our relationship with ALCOA. I had done some work with the Candida Fund previously. This goes all the way back to 2006. I approached them for a $3 million gift to support our housing and energy research. And in turn, they appointed me to a panel that was working to determine how to deliver a $30 million grant, which at the end of the exercise, Georgia Tech received. So Georgia Tech has received a commitment for $30 million from the Candida Fund to build what is expected to become the most environmentally advanced education and research building ever constructed in the Southeast. And this investment represents the Candida Fund's largest single grant and ranks among the largest capital gifts ever received by Georgia Tech. And this originated with the small seed money that came in from Alcoa. So we couldn't be more excited about that. We are in the process now of choosing an architect and engineering collaborative to work on the project. We're defining the architectural program, which has housing as a component. And we're down to a short list of 3 firms, and we've granted them all a stipend. So I'm actually, in this case, operating as the client along with our provost and our campus architect. So this has been the biggest news from Georgia Tech, and it's we're super excited. This is driving changes to the curriculum. We're creating courses around it. We're now conducting 4 graduate level studios that are tracking this living building as a studio exercise while the architects are developing their ideas. So that was the most significant news that we wanted to share. And of course, ILFI, the International Living Futures Institute, will be participating through this, what we're calling the Living Building Challenge, but we fully intend to deliver a state-of-the-art living building and make it through testing for living building certification. So that's the biggest news here. The next level is I wanted to share with you some of the exhibitions that we've participated in. We've exhibited recently in Los Angeles, New York. We just closed an exhibit here in Atlanta. We've been calling it Housework. And this is now the cumulative work of 5 semesters in the area of urban housing and energy production. So it's zero energy design housing. You can visit a link to our website, which I'll share with everyone later. The exhibition, the output from the students and the exhibit, I think, has just generated so much positive dialogue at the institute level, at the community level. And I'm just flipping through a few slides of this most recent exhibition, and you can see in the foreground there's a parallel track of energy calculations that accompany the work that we're doing. And we now have 5 semesters of students out there in the professional realm sharing what they've learned at Georgia Tech. This semester we are working directly at the community level in one of the most impoverished neighborhoods in the city, which is known as English Avenue. And there's several documentaries out there about life on English Avenue, the so-called Hill in Atlanta. And I'm working with a group of engineers and architects on low-cost, affordable housing prototypes. And we're just beginning that this semester, but we're working on a prototypical lot in that part of the city, which is 40 feet by 100 feet. And we're making propositions that are functioning outside of the local zoning ordinances with the idea that working with the community, we determine appropriate ways to resettle an area that's not unlike Berlin was, let's say, maybe 20 or 30 years ago. It's just a sea of open territory that's fallen into disrepair through the years. So we're operating on what we're calling multifamily house prototypes for small compact lots, and we're operating directly with the community there. So we're very excited about that, and I have a group of 19 students working on that as teams. This is an example of one of the other shows that we participated in recently called Design for Social Impact. And let's see if I can advance the slides once more here. And then just, some of it's almost obligatory at this point, but some of the different types of energy calculations we're doing, some of the systemic research students are doing on different modes of energy delivery. We're now using several advanced software platforms to do to do more advanced energy modeling, and we're embarking on a workshop here with IES training in the next 2 weeks, which is a much more robust energy modeling platform. And one more example, last semester we completed a competition in San Francisco, University of California, San Francisco's campus for 500 new housing units there. We made a site visit and we had students working in teams. We didn't win the competition, but we certainly had a great showing, and examples of some of the students from last semester with some of the beautiful models that they're making. So it's an enthusiastic crowd. Sort of giving you an update of where we are in our research at Georgia Tech, and I will share with you all our website with the most recent updates. So I think with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Nina so we have some time for questions.
Okay. So this is Nina Baird from Carnegie Mellon, and the neighborhood in which we're working, Hazelwood, is about 3 miles from our campus and probably about 4 miles from downtown Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh. It's in an ideal location, but it's a neighborhood that used to have almost all of its employment associated with the steel industry. There is still the shell of a Coke plant, not Coca-Cola, but Coke for steel, that is near the neighborhood. And so it has, although Pittsburgh lost about half of its population since its heyday, this has lost more than Pittsburgh overall. It is 45% African American, which is a higher percent than many places. About 25% of the people in the community live below the poverty line. So it is not an advantaged community, and our partner in this is Action Housing, affordable housing agency that's been around since 1957, and our reason for originally forming the relationship was because Action Housing is doing remarkable work, passive house quality or equivalent renovations and new construction in multifamily, and they have been engaging in this locally, and they also work at the national and international level to try to understand how to do this and to do district energy systems. So they do exciting, meaningful work, and they're trying to go for walkable, workable neighborhoods. This is happening just across the railroad tracks from probably the largest tract of land we have under redevelopment in Pittsburgh, which is 178 acres. And this will be developed in different phases and with different types of buildings, but there will be single-family homes, multi-family residential, light industrial, and commercial buildings, and it is truly just across the railroad tracks from Hazelwood, and the residents there are very concerned about being priced out of their neighborhood, justifiably so. So again, a slide about Action Housing. It provides many services, include in addition to housing support, search for jobs, understanding financing, family stabilization, those kinds of things. This is, so the first year, and we are close to the end of our work, but the reason that we've extended this is because construction just started in November for projects that we started working on as with our students a couple years ago. So what you're seeing now is in the middle of the slide, D'Imperio's Market is the last grocery store in Hazelwood. It was closed in 2009. And the building adjacent to it that's a little bit taller is connected at the bottom of the market. That used to be a bakery that went with the market, and then there's residential housing above. And so for the first year of the grant, my students studied sustainable renovation of this building and another one you'll see in a minute. And many of the students, the graduate students here, come from rapidly developing countries where you would never have buildings on this scale, for one thing, and if you did, you would not renovate them. You would tear them down and build something bigger. So this was a great opportunity for them to learn about U.S. construction, the approach to renovating communities, and sustainable products. So they did a lot of work on that. Let's see. And understanding how you can, the challenges of making a profitable grocery store in a small community. Originally, the Pittsburgh Food Bank was going to go into this market, and that has changed a lot since then, but that's the way we started out. Pictures of students going through the old buildings, trying to understand what was in the walls. This picture in the basement actually is a tree limb as one of the structural supports in the basement of the building. Pretty dilapidated conditions. Some of the students' work was to understand how to renovate the assemblies, and at the time, the Pittsburgh Food Bank had wanted a garden on the top, and so students worked on designing that too and understanding that. We used infrared imaging to understand how buildings can be improved, and the images that you're seeing here are both ones done by Action Housing. So this was their first single-family passive house building. It's in a neighborhood called Heidelberg, and their home is on the left, and you can see compared to this is the top slide, very little heat is passing through that envelope, and then on the right, the building next to it, it's warming up the neighborhood. The image on the bottom is a YMCA in a neighborhood called McKeesport that was renovated into an emergency shelter, an overnight shelter, and again, you can see the difference between, and this is a passive house renovation, you can see the difference in the envelope performance there and the building in back of it, residential buildings in back of it. So we use that also to understand the building performance and to help Action Housing also see what it was doing. The students worked on new types of planters that could be done with limited soil and water, and they actually grew tomato plants in these to test them out. This is the second building that we worked on. This is either called the SPAR building or the Oddfellows building. I think the Oddfellows organization originally had it. It's gone through many owners and occupants in the time that it's been in Pittsburgh. It's just down the street, and again, the students evaluated the condition of the building and how it could be renovated. Notice all the windows here. I'm pointing that out because it will be important later. And Alcoa windows are going to be used to replace these. The bottom part, by the way, they did find a tenant. Action Housing did find a tenant, and it will be the Pittsburgh Community Kitchen. And they do catering and also teach people how to work in food service. The tenant that we had and for which they designed the upper floors was not able to get funding together to sign a lease. And so right now, they don't have a tenant for this. As a result, students this semester are going to be working on how you can use LED lighting in an artistic way to make empty upper floors look more lively and appealing until you can get a tenant. And so there's a course in architectural lighting where they'll work on that, and then they'll do the installation this summer. The students developed sheets on how to renovate sustainably, and again, construction is just underway starting in November, so the last part of that is to track construction, to understand how it's working, and to see how those products seem to work. They did models looking at movement of moisture, and also we tested a heat pump loop as opposed to a VAV system. The second year, which was last year, was the community involvement part of it. And this is, the students had two assignments. One is they had to do a collaborative workshop with community members, and they had to plan it and carry it out. And then they also had to teach two lessons of any kind within the community, the idea being that everybody has something that they can offer and contribute. And the other thing that we found is that even though Hazelwood residents are by and large very poor, so that many of the things we might conventionally have thought of for building renovation, they cannot afford. But they value education, and they want highly, and they want their children to do much better than they have done. And so one of the things they told us they were interested in is, can we teach things in the community? So this set of slides, the building on the top left is part of a duplex. Somebody is living in that, and there was water in the basement. There was a lot of garbage around the site, and the building owner behind there used to had a nursery business, and he parked trucks of fertilizer right by it, and the smell was pretty heavy at night. So my students worked with members of the community to find a guy who does concrete work, and he patched the concrete. We worked with the landlord to reroute the downspout and put it into a garden, which we planted. There was a woman who had started a new nursery business, and we bought plants for her and planted plants around the house, and a group that was able to haul away the garbage and sell some things for salvage. So that worked out very well. And this garden now, the woman named Vernita who lives there really enjoys it. And there are only about 3 occupied buildings on this block, but we rerouted the downspouts on all of them. And it turned out that the guy who owned the nursery business also owned a vacant lot that he did not cut. So part of our workshop here was to introduce him to the neighbors, to get him to promise not to park the fertilizer truck near their backyards, and he keeps the vacant lot cut now, and so we cleaned that up. This was probably our most successful workshop, and we'll repeat it in the spring. And there is not much transportation in terms of public transportation in Hazelwood, and not a lot of people have cars. So we had a bike repair workshop and raffle. The CMU, Carnegie Mellon Police, donated bikes that students have left on campus, and students and some local bike mechanics, one of whom lives in Hazelwood, repaired the bikes that we raffled away, and then people brought bikes for repair. And then a community member organized for our one of our local health services, UPMC, to give away coupons for bike helmets. They gave away reflectors for bikes. We had face painting, food. It was just a wonderful event, and the bike mechanics really enjoyed it. They said they felt like they were doing emergency room triage with all these bikes, and we will repeat it. It focused ostensibly on transportation, but it really was a family bike event, and a church donated their parking lot for this, and it was great to see people riding around. In this bottom part, you can see the little girl riding her bike in the parking lot. Many people did that, young and old, when they won a bike. This one, it's interesting. This is our digital fabrication trailer, and it was built by students at Carnegie Mellon. And when we originally applied for the grant, we thought we could use digital fabrication much more to do renovations within homes. But the 2 things we learned is that, first of all, people, again, have very little money to do renovation, and renovation and energy is way down their list of things they think about. It's mostly, you know, food and their kids and paying rent and things like that. So, but we also learned that digital fabrication takes a long time, and so many of your edges have to be, it takes a long time to finish products that are cut with DigiFab. Nevertheless, we used an event where they were doing construction in town and demonstrated digital fabrication and presented a flyer to people, mostly students, about jobs in design and construction and engineering. And so the DigiFab trailer actually debuted in Hazelwood that day, and we, again, talked about repair careers, and then we helped with some of the construction work. And then this is one of the examples of the lessons. We offered a 3-series lesson in GIS mapping, and we gave students, high school students, information about vacant lots in Hazelwood and taught them GIS software, and they got to map that in Hazelwood. So our final activities that we're wrapping up now will be construction monitoring and documentation, the buildings, the SPAR building, and then the grocery store, which is now going to house a bakery, a production bakery. Those will be finishing up this spring and summer. And then I mentioned the lighting displays students are working on this semester, and then we'll have a second bike workshop and raffle in the spring, and we're going to try that block cleanup on a larger scale in another part of the neighborhood. That's it. I guess I'll pass it now to Kathleen.
Yes, thank you, Nina. Wonderful. I really want to give a big thanks to Alice from the Alcoa Foundation and from Uli and Uta and Michael and Nina talking about the wonderful work that they've been doing with students at each of their universities. It's really exciting to see how they've brought these ideas and principles to life with some real life projects in neighborhoods making a positive impact. So thank you all for sharing your stories. If you would like to find out additional information about these stories, as well as stories about the other two university projects that we mentioned earlier, the University in São Paulo, Brazil, and Purdue University in Indiana, please go to the Pillars of Sustainable Education website or to the Living Future, the International Living Future Institute's website, where you can find more information about all of these wonderful programs. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time and attention today. We hope that you are leaving inspired and ready to take on some of these challenges and next steps in your own work. Thank you.